and 1995. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
So there's basically a reiteration of what I just told you, and interestingly enough, you can go look at the realty entry and see the price and see the land. Let's break this down again for folks who, again, we have a hard enough time remembering last week, let alone last decade. Dr. Theodore John Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber, which, for folks, stands for the University and Airline Bomber. That's what the newspapers started to call him. American mathematician, social critic, and anarchist who engaged in a mail bombing spree that spanned nearly 20 years, killing 3 and injuring 23. Born in Chicago, an intellectual child prodigy, he excelled academically from an early age. Kaczynski was accepted into Harvard at the age of 16, where he earned an undergrad degree and later a PhD in math at the University of Michigan. He later became an assistant professor at the University of California in Berkeley at the age of 25, but resigned 2 years later. In 1971, he moved to a remote cabin without electricity or running water in Lincoln, Montana, where he lived as a recluse while learning survival skills in an attempt to become self-sufficient. He decided to start a bombing campaign after watching the wilderness around his home being destroyed by development. From 1978 to 1995, Kaczynski sent 16 bombs to targets including universities and airlines. Kaczynski sent a letter to the New York Times on April 24, 1995, and promised to desist from terrorism if the Times or the Post published his manifesto. Industrial Society and Its Future, a.k.a. the Unabomber Manifesto, he argues that his bombings were extreme, but necessary to attract attention to the erosion of human freedom necessitated by modern technologies requiring large-scale organization. The Unabomber was the target of one of the FBI's most costly investigations. Before Kaczynski's identity was known, the FBI used the handle Unabomb, University and Airline Bomber, to refer to his case, which resulted in the media calling him the Unabomber. Despite the FBI's efforts, he was not caught as a result of their investigation. Instead, his brother recognized Kaczynski's style of writing and beliefs from the manifesto and tipped off the feds. Kaczynski's lawyers were court-appointed, but he eventually dismissed them because they wanted to plead insanity in order to avoid the death penalty, and Kaczynski didn't believe he was insane. Once it was sure that he would be defending himself on national television, the court entered a plea agreement under which he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Theodore Kaczynski has been designated a domestic terrorist by the FBI. Some anarchist authors, such as John Zerzan and John Moore, have come to his defense while, of course, holding some reservations about his actions and ideas. That's just the quick little wiki bio for you. I'm always fascinated in high-profile cases when the accused is going to defend themselves. Now, whether that's Zacarias Moussaoui or Ted Bundy or any of these kind of cases, this really sticks out to me. Once it was sure that he would be defending himself on national television, the court essentially stopped it. You can't have a guy going on national television talking about how this is all a joke and a lie, because in some ways he was right. Am I aligning myself with him? Absolutely not. You know that. That's just a little bit of the bizarre case of the Unabomber. Something we want to tie in and mention is a strange film you may or may not have heard of. It's called The Net, the Unabomber, LSD, and the Internet. You can watch it in its entirety on YouTube. It's broken up into multiple parts. You can even buy the DVD on Amazon, and I give you both of those links. Do you see some of the recurring themes and memes throughout these things? The Unabomber, LSD, and the Internet. Couldn't we just swap out Assange, LSD, and the Internet with all the associated double dealings and CIA-linked assets? As we already discussed earlier in this episode, getting into the WikiLeaks PSYOP. A couple, or rather one for that matter, related history mystery update. Bruce Ivan's lawyers, or rather lawyer, and colleagues share details the FBI left out. This is from the Frederick News Post out of Frederick, Maryland, home of Fort Detrick, home of the accused and now late lone anthrax gunman Patsy. 9 years have passed since 5 people were killed and 17 sickened by anthrax spores mailed to lawmakers and news outlets. And it's been 9 months since the FBI closed its investigation into those attacks. But new information about the anthrax, the investigation, and the suspect still continue to emerge. On November 29th, the University of California's Institute on Global Conflict and Cooperation hosted a seminar on the so-called Amerithrax investigation. Experts have spent years doubting that Fort Detrick scientist Bruce Ivins committed the crime, as the FBI alleges, but they have never gathered to share their knowledge and theories until Monday's meeting at the university's Washington Center. This gets into drying anthrax, snow white or pepper-like, anthrax samples lost, on and on and on. Oh, and that, reminds me, as we referenced a little bit ago, the latest entrapment Patsy bust in Baltimore this time with the 21-year-old who was funded and trained and prodded and poked by the FBI, just as our own tree bomber was here on Blackjack Friday. Funded and trained and prodded at every step of the way. Well-timed to scare the masses. Sick of the TSA story, ready to run back to daddy for help. Of course, again, in the case of the new Baltimore bomber, just like in the case of the Portland tree bomber, the critical moment of recordings, and of course, they record everything, but the critical moment that the case rests on, that they blather on about endlessly in the FBI affidavits, technical difficulties prevented recording of that conversation, the one where they confirmed, the one where the FBI says, "Are you sure you don't want to just study and pray and serve Islam that way?" Those conversations are gone. Call it the 18-minute gap, if you want. So there, we referenced the Baltimore bomber and the Portland tree bomber with the Bruce Ivins Amerithrax Patsy with the Unabomber's land for sale. We'll joke and call the Unabomber land story something for the boys, and we'll close the show with something for the girls. Barbie video girl in FBI crosshairs. Barbie video camera streams and downloads to computer. We have this cross-posted on Media Monarchy and cyberspacewar.com, but we'll take it from threat level. A Barbie doll, tricked out with a video camera concealed in her necklace, could be used by predators to create child pornography, warns the FBI in a recent cybercrime alert. In the alert, mistakenly released to the press, the FBI expressed concern that the toy's camera, which can capture 30 minutes of video and rivals a Canon 7D in quality, with a video comparison for you on Vimeo, could be used to lure children and surreptitiously film child pornography. Barbie and other dolls have been used in the past by sexual predators to attract victims. According to ABC News, which obtained a copy of that memo, the FBI appears to have opened an investigation into the doll. Mattel, the maker of Barbie Video Girl, noted in a statement that the FBI didn't say it knew of any cases where the Barbie camera had been used for such nefarious purposes, but a sheriff's spokesman told ABC News that the FBI alert will be helpful for drawing attention to investigators collecting evidence at a crime scene. When we're doing such a search warrant looking for media that a child pornographer may have used, we're going to have to put Barbie on the list just like any other cameras and computers, said Sergeant John Urquhart from the King County Sheriff's Department in my neighbor to the north, Washington State. So we do have other links to the Daily Mail and the aforementioned ABC News and others. So, you know what I want for Christmas. The related update posted to the bottom of this story, Barbie Video Girl and FBI crosshairs. Again, this is how things work out. This is the synchromysticism, if you will. The latest episode from Red Ice Radio on redicecreations.com is an interview with M.G. Lord, the author of the book Forever Barbie, an unauthorized biography of a real doll. Does this sound strange? Does this sound like silliness? Well, let's tie in Ruth Handler, Edward Bernays, Mattel, The Century of the Self, scientific studies done on television, and the hive mind, the persuaders, the merchants of cool, subliminal advertising, modern-day brainwashing. All of those things tie in to the history of the Barbie doll, and that's an amazing bit of timing for Henrik and Red Ice Radio. And I think that does it, my friends. That's all the latest and greatest media from MediaMonarchy.com. Let's first glance, as we've been trying to remind you, one, thanks to Alan in Omaha for posting so many stories to cyberspacewar.com. Thanks to my Wi-Fi pod, I've been doing a lot more twittering and tweeting. Twitter.com/MediaMonarchy. We can look at some of those things, and some of those are things that never make it to the website. Sarah Palin says Julian Assange should be hunted down like Osama bin Laden, so he should be safe for at least a decade. That was, of course, before his capture. We report, again, as we told you earlier in the show, Feds checking 1.1 billion new $100 bills as production problems delay their release. UPS requires photo ID for shipping. UPS stepping up security measures during the holiday season. All-out cyber war erupting over WikiLeaks. Explosion rocked a plant in West Virginia's northern panhandle, at least 2 dead. Car containing Prince Charles and Camilla attacked in London by angry protesters. Ron Paul, author of In the Fed, to lead the Federal Reserve Oversight Panel. We've got tweets retweeted from NORAD, and also Silver is the New, where they note December 10th, that's today, the last good day to purchase silver before the J.P. Morgan silver squeeze. Again, using silver bullets to kill J.P. Morgan. They have a massive short position. If we can buy silver, we might be able to hurt them. And at the very least, you can start collecting and storing up precious metals that we may or may not need. It's not going to go bad like food, though. You're always going to need it. And you can turn around and use it whenever you want. That's going to do it, my friends. Next week, Tracy Twyman in studio. Christmas Eve, we're taking it off, and we'll have a mixtape to drop for you. Then, New Year's Eve, we'll be back with episode 200. All that and so much more. Amazing surprises in store. Keep your eyes on MediaMonarchy.com, and we'll keep going and growing. My name's James Evan Pilato. I'm your host and webmaster of the site and show at MediaMonarchy.com. Coming to you, as always, from the Portland Radio Authority, PRAradio.org. I send huge thanks to all you guys out there. I really appreciate it. And as always, don't hate the media. Become the media. Take care.
MediaMonarchy.com is your source for alternative news, politics, conspiracies and cover-ups. Featuring weekly radio shows on the Portland Radio Authority, PRAradio.org. The New World Next Week video series with CorbettReport.com. Plus special interview episodes, B-sides, mixtapes and so much more. Send news tips to MediaMonarchy@gmail.com. You can make a donation